Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. This is Jacob Dahlin, your host, and today, interesting guy from Slovakia, Dominik Bovan. We're going to talk about D3 hockey today as the main topic. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Jacob. I'm happy to be here.
All right, so I poached you on LinkedIn. Actually, I think we got connected and looked into you a little bit, and I said, well, let's bring you on. I think you got an interesting story. So first, let's talk about where you are today.
Yeah. So today I'm actually in the dorm in Plattsburgh, a small town or city an hour south of Montreal, right across from the lake of Burlington, Vermont. But the Plattsburgh is in New York, and this is where I play Division III college hockey for Plattsburgh State. And yeah, it's my
SUNY
first year.
State, yes, SUNY State University of New York, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that because we really haven't talked too much about that on the podcast about NCAA D3, what's it like and things like that. So, but when I asked you that offline, I didn't really know where Plattsburgh was. So get the trusted Google Maps here, and this time of year probably not super warm.
No, we have a couple inches of snow or a couple centimeters. So yeah, we have some snow, but it's not super cold. Around 32 or 0 Celsius, depends which one.
Yeah, and you said you're about an hour from Lake Placid?
Yeah, hour from Lake Placid too. Yeah.
Great. Well, let's start because you got an interesting path or journey to. I really want to have kind of three parts here. One is your background from Slovakia to prep school to juniors to college. Number two, about what's it like playing NCAA D3, and three is going to be your young entrepreneurship and your company that you have, and we'll talk about some of the brands that, and we have some common denominators, some common friends there that with ResTech as well. So, but let's start with going back in time a little bit. So are you from Bratislava?
Yes. I was born in Bratislava and grew up there before moving to the States. Yeah.
Which is one of the larger cities in Slovakia.
Yeah, it's actually the capital city.
It is the capital. Okay. So full transparency, I was born in the 70s, grew up when it was all Czechoslovakia. And after that, it's been kind of hard to keep up with. So I'm terrible with geography nowadays, but I think my brother's been there, and I think it's a pretty. Describe Bratislava to those who don't know about Slovakia and Bratislava specifically.
So Bratislava is a great place in the center of Europe, which is the capital of Slovakia, but I wouldn't say it's just the capital of Slovakia. It's also an hour away from Vienna, 2-3 hours from Budapest, and a couple hours from Prague too. So it's in the heart of the Central Europe. So whether you want to visit the mountains in Slovakia, for example, High Tatra, which is 3 hours away, or go to Austria to see the Alps, Bratislava is a nice location where you can spend a couple of days, see the history of Slovakia, and just enjoy the environment there.
Yeah. So, hockey always been a big part of your life, or did you play other sports?
I grew up playing a lot of sports. It's first started with, for example, even karate. I did gymnastics, did soccer for a while, but then when I was 6, 7, my friends were playing hockey. So I was like, let's give it a shot. And immediately I went to the net, being a goalie. And yeah, I kind of stuck with hockey ever since then.
Yeah. So let's go back. So if I'm looking up on Elite Prospects 2003, we may want to mention that you were a goalie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
goalies are its own breed of people. They should have its own category of goalies, not just as a position in sports, but always been a goalie, or
Always been a goalie.
always been a goalie.
Yeah, came into hockey thinking I want to stop the puck, I want to get shot at, I want to drop down on my knees, I want to destroy my body. It's just
well, who was so interesting question for me, because when you grew up, so who was your idols as a goalie?
So for me, it's always been a little weird because I never really followed professional hockey so much. But when I did, I always looked up to Dominik Hasek,
Who's not
famous
from
Czech.
Slovakia.
No, he's from Czech Republic. Yeah, and
So that's the reason why I asked that about being an interesting question. How is that growing up in Slovakia? Because it's, you know, there's rivalries and that kind of things. You know, growing up in Sweden, there was always kind of tight rivalries between Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway in all sports, but not necessarily. But how is it politically between the countries? Are there animosities and or is it just what's it like growing up there?
I would say that we're still kind of friends. We, even though we split and politically we're two different countries, I have a lot of Czech friends that I met back home or in the US as well. And for me, we still watch Czech TV. So for me, I don't really differentiate us so much. But whenever there is a hockey game, I'm always for Slovakia, and Czech Republic is my worst enemies.
Okay, good. So it's just like Sweden and Finland. Stupid question here, but from a language standpoint, how much difference? I'm sure there are dialects and so on. What is the? I'm sure it's a Slavic language, but what's the difference between Czech and Slovak
So
languages?
we can speak the same. We speak basically the same language. We can understand each other, but they're considered different. They have different grammar rules, and everything's different. But I can have a full-on conversation with anyone from Czech Republic.
Okay, and let's see. So Yaga is from Czech Republic too, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Man, so we spoke a little bit about a couple of we have to have a Leksand connection. So Seladik and Rivik, who plays for Leksand in the SHL, are are two of the top players. Well, I know they're later in age now and they're not playing
Mhm.
in the NHL, but what Slovakian players are playing in the NHL right now?
So we have Tomáš Tatar, who has been there for a while, and uh, Juraj Slavkovsky and Šimon Nemec were number one and two of the last draft before Beran was drafted. So they're starting to play there. And they're pretty doing fine right now. Pretty good.
Yeah, they're okay. They're
Yeah,
okay.
they're okay. Getting used to the level.
But so you as an O3, I mean, so let's talk about so you played last year in well, let's talk about you what's a system of juniors in Slovakia. So you didn't play juniors in there. You played all the way to U16. I'm looking here. And then you went over to US to play prep school.
Yeah.
How that's not the common path.
No, it's not a common path, but it was a pretty difficult decision for me because back in Slovakia, the school and hockey aspects are very different compared to the US, where I feel like you have to choose at a very young age if you want to pursue academic career or if you want to stick with hockey. And for me, I always wanted to excel at everything, so both school and hockey. So after talking with my parents and deciding, I decided to leave home at 16 and come to prep school in the US.
And then COVID hit.
And then, yeah, I was there for not even a year. I think it was the 13th of March when 2020, and I was sent home. And yeah, my played 3 games my first year, and my second year, our school didn't play a single game. So yeah, so it was a difficult time.
Yeah, so from a hockey standpoint, if you would have stayed in Slovakia, how was the COVID restrictions there? Were they not as severe as here?
I would say they were about the same.
Okay.
Quarantine and everything, mask wearing. Yeah, about the same, I would say.
Yeah. But then you ended up gotten back over here with in the USPHL, which I think the junior so the Cyclones I think are still in the USPHL, but the Boston Junior Bruins are now in the NCDC.
No. They're both. They're different levels of hockey now. So you have NCDC, USPHL Premier, and USPHL Elite. It's everything is sanctioned under the USPHL organization, but there's three different levels, with NCDC being the best, Premier second best, and Elite the worst one.
But does Boston Junior Bruins, because I know he's got it listed here as Premier. Do they have both Premier and NCDC teams?
They have all three actually, Premier,
Oh, okay.
NCDC, Elite too.
I see, I see. But so you played for those two for 21, 22 and 22, 23. How was that moving from and you've done really, really well. Very, very good save percentage and goal against average. Was that because you were really good, or was that because the team was really good?
So
Don't be
I,
bashful.
to be honest, I think at the time it was more because the team was really good, but in the Bruins, I felt like for the most of the season, I was the one kind of carrying the team a little bit. But yeah, we did pretty good. But then in the playoffs, I didn't have my best game second year, so we dropped out pretty early. But yeah, it was pretty good experience.
Yeah. How was that how was that different for you in playing juniors versus, let's say, prep school or what you're used to in Slovakia?
So the biggest difference for me was that in juniors you never have nothing guaranteed. Kind of in prep school, okay, you're on the team, you're at school, so you're gonna stay on the team regardless. In juniors, there is a little bit of a more of a movement. And also in juniors, you're always trying to move up a level. So for me, I was trying to move up from Premier to NCDC all the time, or even higher. Every summer that I played juniors, I had to go to a bunch of camps, all the way from USHL all the way down to USP Premier camps, just to find myself a spot where I would play. So that's the biggest difference, trying to stay on the team, make sure you have a spot, because nothing is guaranteed in junior hockey.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about your goals a little bit. I mean, so going to prep school and going to play juniors, and now you're in university, which we're going towards and as a main topic here. But what was have you always been, what was the reason for coming over in the first place? Was it to be able to get to college?
Yeah, the ultimate goal was playing Division One and still play Division One hockey, which didn't happen. But yeah, that was the goal coming in, getting a full ride scholarship. Of course, ideal world. That was the main goal.
Well, and so how being 16 in Slovakia, I mean, how did you figure out the path? And because there was no Slovakian junior hockey podcast
Mm.
on back then.
No, there was nothing like that. But it was my dad was trying to help me a lot at that point. So we went for 2 weeks to the US just to see New England area. And then when we came home, we really liked it. And then we found an organization called JK Education that helps young athletes or young even any kids trying to go to US prep schools mainly that are in Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, or even Poland. And we met with them. We went to the fair, found out about Kent's Hill, and that's how the entire process started.
Yeah. And so the eye was on the prize of D1 uh NCAA D1 or college. Did you know anything about the difference between club hockey D3 and D1 at that time?
No, to be honest, I didn't really know the difference until the end of prep school. Prep school, when I started to go to juniors, especially with the COVID year, I didn't learn a lot as
Yeah.
far as hockey goes, and I was always okay, still D1, D1, D1. And then slowly I realized, okay, it might be a push, and then it was D3. And then at some point, it kind of looked like I was going to end up ACHA D1 or possibly even ACHA D2. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how well, let's talk about the junior side first, because a lot of people don't know that, okay, I want to play college hockey, and you know they don't know that you got to play juniors.
Yeah. So as
right?
long, yeah, if you want to go Division 1 or Division 3, you definitely have to play juniors until you're a star player in the USHL or even in high school or prep school hockey, you might get a full ride right away. But I would say 95% of players play 2 or 3 years of juniors for sure.
Yeah. And of course they're going to pick USHL first, but there's only so many teams in USHL, but if you look at the rosters for USHL, they're full of NCAA D1 commits.
Yeah.
And then you go down to, in the US, you go to the North American
No.
Hockey League, and the rest of the NCAA's are commits are coming from NOL or the BCHL or the AJHL or the OJHL in Canada. But you know, a lot of people, so if you are coming in and you know the competition's so tough, as you're saying, you've been to USHL camps, you've been to NOL camps, you've been to USPHL or NCDC camps. It's so tough. How is it as a young person to go through that, because you got your hopes up in your mind, you're just as good as that guy that, you know,
Yeah.
play at that level.
This was really hard time for me, to be honest, going to so many camps and getting cut all the time, and then slowly realizing that you might not be as good, or that just the stars didn't align right at some point. But I would say it's a lot of mental toughness and having a supportive group around you. For me, it was my family, which helped me a lot
Yeah,
during the hardest times after getting cut, coming home crying. It wasn't the easiest time of my life, but looking back, I wouldn't regret anything and would do it all over again if I could.
yeah. What if you were to, you know, finishing up here about juniors, but what's been the you know, if you compare the prep school versus juniors, a little bit difference, which one's been the more fun?
It's very hard for me to say because prep school was COVID era, so I didn't play real prep school hockey, so I would have to say juniors. But if I would get the full prep school experience, I think prep school might be like more security, while
Yeah.
juniors might be more of an adventure and maturing more as a person.
What advice would you give to the person looking at, you know, they're coming up and they're going to play juniors? What advice would you say? Hey, I've gone through it now. Uh,
Yeah, so it depends. If they're coming up as a number 1 star, then know that okay, you're the number 1 star right now, but you might get a sprained ankle or any other injury, and no one's gonna look at you again.
yeah,
So maybe be a little humble. But as far as if you're coming in, okay, I'm gonna try this, try that. I will tell them it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be a lot of perseverance, but if you're mentally strong, that's more maybe even more important than having the hockey skill. It's definitely worth doing it.
yeah. Are you talking mainly as a hockey player, or is it also growing up as a young adult?
As a young adult, a lot more than just as a hockey player. Because now that I'm in college, also just looking at the 18-year-olds and I'm 20, I'm like, okay, yeah, I was that stupid once too.
Cool. So let's talk about the D3 part right quick. How in the world did you end up? I mean, so the SUNY schools, so the State University of New York, good hockey that way, and a fairly, if you compare, um, so it's not cheap to go to college in the US.
Yeah, that's true.
But and if you're looking at D3, they don't offer scholarships, but they can offer financial aid, loans, grants, and some academic
Mhm.
scholarships, right? But it's not cheap. But out of all the D3 schools, I would say that the State University of New York schools have a fairly competitive tuition.
Yeah, they're still not cheap, as you said, but
Still not
compared
cheap.
to some private schools, for example, NSTACs, they're like half the price or maybe even less.
Yes.
considering after all the deductions too,
Yeah.
unless of course you go D1 when you get the athletic money, but if you don't, then yes, state schools are usually a lot cheaper than the private ones.
When did talk about timing wise, when did you start? So when you were going through juniors, when did you start applying for the actual schools, or was that after you've been talking to them about hockey from a recruitment standpoint? Because I'm imagining that your goal is on D1, so you're talking to everybody, but then since you're playing D3 now, I'm assuming that you didn't get any of those offers.
No, it's one thing is in juniors, it also depends what level you're playing. Because for me, there was no reason even to reach out to Division 1 schools at the USDHL Premier level because okay, it will be an email, the coach will look at all USP. Okay, next one. But as far as Division 3 schools, I would say I personally emailed maybe 20 schools, got maybe 5 responses. And then the main thing is for the coach to honor because I committed here to SUNY Plattsburgh 2 months after when my last season ended. So yeah, I looking back, I probably should have applied a little sooner to all the schools, but like before January deadline. But it's nothing is too late, but it's gonna be difficult.
Yeah. Why do you say that? In terms of getting all the classes that you wanted?
I wouldn't say getting all the classes, but having a spot in the school, getting the money you need. Because if a coach wants you, he's gonna tell you, okay, did you apply to this school? But if you say no, and their application deadline is January 1st, and you talk to the coach in the middle of February, then probably unless the coach has a really good connection at the admissions office, there's a pretty low chance for you to be able to get in.
Yeah. But so when you apply for so let's use your examples with SUNY Plattsburgh, and because you're an international student, you had to go through admissions a little bit differently than the US student.
Yeah, so for me, here at SUNY Plattsburgh, I first committed verbally with the coach, and then I started the application process. So it was the other way as it's supposed to be. But yeah, so for general, like to talk in how it should be, you're first supposed to research your schools, email the coach, get a response. Okay, we might come to a couple of the games. You might watch video on you, and then you start sending out the applications so you can get into the school. And then once you get your yes from the coach too, then you tell the school, okay, I'm going in. But for me, it was exactly the completely other way.
Yeah. Let's make it a little bit more difficult. Uh,
Yeah,
and I'm looking at, so of course they have a 2000 birth year and a 2001. So you're the young guy,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And but you're coming in, and did you have to do the SATs, or did you just do the transcripts and you have to do the TOEFL?
So for me, I had my TOEFL scores coming into prep school because it's a requirement for that.
Yeah.
So I got that out of the way at 15, 16, so I didn't have to worry about that. And as far as SATs, it's not a requirement nowadays for most schools, but for me at prep school, they were pushing me to do it. So I did it my senior year in prep school, did pretty well. So then I was just using the scores to send over to the schools, but it's not a requirement anymore.
Yeah. So you started in the fall, like everybody else?
Yeah, like everyone else. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when did you move? When did you move into Plattsburgh? When did you go up there to move up?
I moved up here maybe last week of August. I would say, yeah, I think it was August 20th or 21st when I drove up here from Philly because that's where my parents live right now.
Yeah.
So drove up here, moved into the dorms. I'm actually rooming with a guy who played for the same organization, but at the NCDC level, Aaron Catron. So it was nice not coming into the school and knowing someone right away. So yeah.
So he's on the squad now, right?
Yeah. Aaron Catron, he's a year older than me,
Okay.
2002.
Okay. Awesome. And then, so let's talk about what difference, because you've been to, well, so let's talk about the NCAA D3 in SUNY, because there's a ton of NCAA D3 schools in the country.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you have some type of conference breakup in D3.
We are the SUNY conference with Oswego, Geneseo, Morrisville, Rockport, and a couple
Syracuse?
other teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is also an SCAC conference, which is the Smart School Conference. There are some D3s in Minnesota.
What'd you call it? The Smart School Conference?
A Smart School Conference. Yeah.
So yeah, NESCAC. So those are the ones. Let me see if I can pick those up. Is Tufts? Is that part of NESCAC?
Yeah, it's Colby, Bowdoin, Tufts, Williams, Middlebury, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I'm looking at if I'm looking at the NCAA D3, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 SUNY schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at Brockport, Canton, Cortland, Fredonia, Geneseo, Oswego, Plattsburgh, and Potsdam. I thought Syracuse was part of that, but
No.
yeah. And a friend of mine, he plays for Stevenson University. I think that's where Jack Carlson is on. He's been on the podcast before. Plays D3 there. But what's hockey like now when you got there in August? And facilities wise, if you compare prep school to juniors to NCAA D3, what's it like to be a student athlete at the collegiate level?
So it's difficult, but not impossible to do. And because you have to wake up early for practices, you have to have a sense of discipline to be able to do both. And but the biggest thing I would say is it depends from school to school as far as facilities go, because here at Plattsburgh, we have a nice arena that can seat almost 2,000 people. But then we go to other schools, even in the conference or especially out of the conference, where you get 50 fans at a game, which which is a big difference. It's not like D1 where you have all the schools have a couple thousand fans at the games. But here in D3, it really depends what program you go to as far as what facilities you're going to get.
What's the coaching staff look like versus juniors? Because in juniors, you typically have a head coach and assistant coach, and that's about it, right?
Yeah, for me, it was like that. But it also depends on the level of juniors you play. But
Yeah.
here in college, I would say we have a head coach, of course, assistant coach. We have a goalie coach that's usually on the ice twice a week and travels to the games. We have a full-time athletic trainer that whatever we need before, after, during practice, he's there to help us. And then we are fortunate enough to have a student equipment manager who comes and sharpens our skates and gives us new sticks if they break, gets a save, and anything like that we might need during practice.
Okay. And how would you what about the level of play in terms of moving from juniors to D3? So I'm assuming that there's a lot more older players. Let me pull up.
I'm the youngest one on the team, just to make it easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the youngest one by almost a year because I had another year of eligibility for 2 years, but I decided to go to college right away. And yeah, the oldest guy on the team, I think, is gonna turn 26 this year in 2024 because they're 98.
Yeah.
So, so it's definitely a big difference from playing with 21-year-olds to playing with a 26-year-old. The level of maturity in the team is big, but still, the compete level is a lot higher than the level of juniors I played. I would say maybe the Division 3 schools physically wise are a lot better than the USHL, but you don't have as much skill if I'm comparing juniors to college, for example. But everyone works out hard in the gym, so it's a much more physical league than juniors.
So what is the likely path for the player that comes in and plays 4 years now? Because I'm assuming that you want to play 4 years in the same place.
Yeah, yes.
And no guarantee that you're going to get any playing time as a freshman.
That's true. I didn't play a single game, yeah,
Yeah. So far,
so far.
but it could be injuries and these
Yeah.
type of things. But let's say now you're going to stay there and play 4 years. When you graduate, are there options for a D3 player to go pro? Or is it now, hey, I'm having a best time of my life playing collegiate hockey. I'm going to get a professional degree and then I'm going out in the workplace.
I would say 90 to 95% of players go to workplace and they quit hockey or play beer leagues, just a hobby. Transfer hockey from being their number one thing they do every day to just being on the side a couple times a week. But you have that 5% of players that go on to play pro hockey, and they even go to play some good leagues. For example, last year we had a guy, Jacob Moldry, who graduated last year in Plattsburgh, and he went on to the NHL development camp and ended up in the East Coast, so ECHL.
In
So this
Savannah,
means, yeah,
the Savannah Ghost Pirates in the coast.
yeah.
But I guess so. What's your goal?
Very good question. I wish I would have an answer for you right now, but as of right now, I would like to keep on playing hockey as long as I can at the highest level possible. But at the same time, if I'm done with college and hockey doesn't bring me money or doesn't allow me to live a sustainable lifestyle, I'm open to going into the workforce and just working for myself.
Yeah. And I think that's the eye of the needle is so small, right? There's so few that are. I mean, certainly you could go and play in Europe and play minor pro
Mhm.
somewhere, but you don't necessarily need a college degree to do that either. But
Yeah,
I think that the balancing act between you can go out in the workplace and actually make some money versus you're really not going to make a lot of money playing Division 2 in Sweden, as an example.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe
It,
a continuation of really good time, but
yeah.
uh,
It also like even if you play, like I know that I can go play hockey back home in Slovakia in the second or third league, even right now, straight out of juniors. But what good would that do me in the long term? I don't
yeah,
think I would feel satisfied overall.
yeah, no, that's for sure. So let's talk about the third topic. You're a little bit unique here, being a freshman in college, and you already have your own company, right?
It's not exactly my own company. I
Ah,
originally
let's just call it your own company, right?
okay, my own company.
No, but you're working with your family's business,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And so, but also, the reason why we got connected was because of ResTech,
yeah,
and we have some common connections there with the ownership of
yeah.
ResTech. But how's ResTech? Is ResTech one of the brands that you guys work with?
Yeah, I actually started working with Restag my last year of juniors. Last year, when I was just looking for something to do, because during juniors there I have a lot of free time. So I was looking through LinkedIn actually, and I found Andre Dula, which is our connection at Restag, and I started to do some stuff in the US, making some databases for him, or just going around the stores and seeing how that goes. And now it's more kind of transitioned into I'm trying to find some NIL deals with some athletes that are in the US, so that can promote Restec. And yeah, also my dad's business does some packaging for Restec as well. So there is a degree of cooperation there.
Yeah. And explain to those who don't know what ResTech is. Pretty cool company, a little bit of a unique new thing
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is gaining some traction with some of the with now, especially after they got the NHL logo or approved status within NHL.
Yeah, so Restec, for those who don't know what it is just a sticker for the blade of the hockey stick that you can stick on, and it should last 8 to 10 skates. It's it increases the rotation for the puck and overall gives you a harder, more accurate shot by a couple percent, but sometimes those 3 or 5% might be the difference of scoring a goal or not. So it enhances performance. And also one thing that's very interesting about Restec is that unlike tape, it's fully customizable so that some players can put their number or their logo of the team on the blade of the stick. Or if you have a sponsor for a team or a league, they can put their logo and every player is gonna have it on the blade of the stick, increasing the awareness for the company that's
Yeah.
sponsoring the event of the team.
Yeah, so it's and the reason why I got connected with ResTech originally was because so Andre Dula, who was the owner, or I guess he's the CEO of,
Yeah.
I think he went on the equivalent of Shark Tank with some investors in the Boston area, and that's how I got connected. Because one of those investors called me and said, "Hey, you ought to have this is a pretty cool company. Maybe they." So we're going to see if we should have a partnership with Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast here as one of the sponsors. But I haven't tried the product, so I don't know. But I've seen it and it's pretty intriguing. And the uniqueness, like you're saying, is not just from a recognition from a logo. What I've seen so far is the advertisement from that you can have your number or your logo of your team. But I
Yeah.
see there's also a huge benefit from a standpoint of the ability to have messaging on that can then be utilized in content and advertisement that
Yeah.
doesn't impact performance. You know, a lot of things, unfortunately, when they have things that you want to, either there's restrictions from a you can't do it, or it's cumbersome, or it just won't work that way. I guess the last thing I saw was Zdeno Chara was
Yeah. He's
I,
the guy behind it. He's from Slovakia too.
yeah,
So
I knew that there's got to be a connection, and he said,
yeah.
I think
Oh, and
that's all
also
that.
Andre is from Slovakia too. So yeah, so it's a Slovak company. That's why the connection there.
Yeah, and I think I saw the advertisement says um Zdeno Chara's been spotted using
Yeah,
the
yeah,
product, which is pretty cool. So, but what's it like being a college student and you're already working with these things? And I mean, isn't it the best kind of application? You're working some with your dad's company, you're working with ResTech, and next year you'll be doing more things like
yeah.
while you're studying, right?
I would say it's a big learning curve because I make a lot of mistakes doing these things at the early age or like at the beginnings, and it's better, I would say, to make these mistakes right now and to learn from them right now instead of being 24, 25 and going into the workforce right away, having no experience, just a college degree. So that's then you're gonna kind of cause some issues for your future employer. But for me, I don't want to be an employee. I want to have my own business.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, let me ease you into this by saying I'm 48 and I still make a ton of mistakes. But it's about learning, right? And
yeah,
the quicker you can get in to learn and learn new things, the more valuable you can become. And unfortunately for a lot of, I really want to challenge listeners that are hockey players that it's not, I think at the end of the day, we're all going to end up in the beer leagues. Some have different journeys into the beer leagues and they're not going to be pros. But the beauty of playing college hockey is that you can be part of a fraternity that you can then leverage in the workplace. But don't graduate with, or don't leave school without a degree, and don't leave school without a network and a group of people
Yeah.
that you can leverage in the workplace. And don't leave college without leveraging your experiences. And I think that includes working and trying to figure out, what am I going to do in my next chapter of life. And I think there's so many applications to hockey. You mentioned adversity, you mentioned patience, and the ability to learn and figuring things out. The professional life is very similar to the game of hockey.
Yeah, as you're saying that, like, being a hockey player is just one chapter, because unless you're younger, you're gonna be done playing hockey at 40 at latest. Most guys between 30 and 35, if you make it to the pro level. But what then? You still have another 30 years, 40 years before retirement, and you need to know what you're gonna do right after. Because if you just sit and you didn't play in the NHL, so you don't have millions laying in your bank account, you're gonna have to find something to do.
Yep. All right, last couple of things. So we asked this question to every guest, and that is, you met yourself, you're okay, you're only 20, but you met yourself but there's a big difference between when you're 20 and when you're 17. But you met yourself at 17, you've experienced a few more things since you were 17. What things do you wish you could tell yourself that you didn't know then that you know now at 17? What advice would you give yourself?
Don't be so stubborn, I would say. Because I feel like I thought, and I still think that right now, that even when I was 17, I thought, okay, I've been there, done that. But as I grow older, I realize the more I know, the more I know that I don't know. So I feel like even right now, sometimes I think I know this or that, but I come to a realization that there is a lot more to learn. So that's probably the biggest thing I would tell myself. Be patient and be eager to learn and listen from other people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Great advice. Last thing, we have a partnership with Target Aid, which is a fundraising platform, but it's also more of a content creation platform that is based in Stockholm, Sweden. So we have a presence on Target Aid, and every guest gets to name the team of their dreams, or in Sweden it's called Klubben i mitt hjärta, which means the team in my heart. So if I was going to ask you, which team is the team closest to your heart, which is the one that you are the most proudest to hang on the wall for you?
Well, this is a tough question. It depends where I am. Because in the US, I would say my hometown team of Slovan Bratislava, the team I grew up playing for, and the team that plays in the Slovak League. But when I'm back home, I would probably say Boston Bruins or Montreal Canadiens in the NHL.
Okay.
Those are my two teams.
What we're going to do, we're going to use the Bratislava, since
Okay.
that's also tied into the youth hockey
Yeah.
world, and we'll see if that club will take advantage of the challenge with this is that uh, we will be contacting, or Target Aid will be contacting them, and there'll be a story that they can build from that, where they can say, hey, I see that you were on this podcast, and you mentioned that this is the team of my dreams, or the team closest to my heart, and hopefully they can take that and run with it as a story, and you can say, yes, contact me anytime. We'll set it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Dominic, it's been a pleasure having you on, talking about your background is unique, and specifically about D3, and your advice there, and then as you journey through the college world and working at the same time. It's been a fun journey to talk about.
Thank you very much, Jacob. It's been a pleasure being on your podcast. I think I learned some things today, and it was very interesting for me to share my experiences with you and everyone listening.
Yeah, thanks so much. Stay in touch for sure.